Hey, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 137, Inventions of Black History, Black Tech Talk. I'm here by myself tonight, at least until somebody gets on. Hey, what's going on, Complex? What's going on, Intergravity? And there is a docket in the description beneath the video. Please hit the like button as you come in, and we'll wait about 90 seconds for people to catch up. Yep, no problem, Complex. As everyone knows, February is Black History Month in America, so we will actually identify the inventions of um, black inventors for Black History Month. I'll wait another 30 seconds for people to catch up. All right, let me get started. Share my screen. All right, so the first item on the docket is just a quick go around for NSBE, which is National Society of Black Engineers. If you are a black person in STEM, you should actually register with NSBE because it's very beneficial for social networking and actually creates opportunities as well if you register because there are a lot of people in the industry that can get you into certain places, and it celebrates black excellence in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So I just want to go around the website real quick, and you have the student section, you have your professional section, which is where I usually linger around at. See if I can just pull this up. I'm a part of Region 1, and to the right of it, you have is your special interest groups such as energy, entrepreneurship, environmental, healthcare innovation, information technology think tank, intellectual property, process improvement, public policy, space, transportation, and women in science and engineering, which is WISE. I'm a part of Region 1, so I'm going to click on that real quick. Um, so here, so depending on where you live, there's a certain region for every area. Region 1 starts from the East Coast, and then it moves backwards. So Region 1 would be New England and New York as well. So, and there is an event coming up as well. Several events coming up. 45th conventional um, annual convention. So let me see if I can back out and go to the professional section. Go to professional. Yeah, if you're not a member, you're not going to see a whole lot of some of the beneficial content. But for the most part, just about everything you need is on the. It's just about everything you need for navigation is on the front page. I like to go to some of the headlines. I usually subscribe to the email, so I like NISB Junior. I like what they do with the kids. They have a full track that goes from K through 12 all the way up to college and then up to professional careers. So there's a whole entire track that focuses on cultural and intellectual development and academic achievement as well. Let me just click on. Something's not right with the site. A second. All right, this is for the NISB 45th Annual Convention that takes place in March 27th to the 31st. They don't have an agenda up as of yet, but there will be one going out. Let's click on some news real quick. Right, so if you click on news, it's going to give you all the latest discussions that's going on in terms of what's going on within NISB itself. And they also have a magazine that goes with it. You can also donate. Who just joined?
Yo, that's me, Mike. What's going on? What's going on, everyone?
I'm chilling. Complex. What's going on, man?
Good.
All right.
Nisby Jr., huh?
Yeah, I do NISB Junior once a year. So what NISB Junior focuses on is taking the K through 12 way through a track to trying to figure out what kids are into in terms of STEM, and then you on that and you kind of cultivate them so that they focus on that track, and then you carry them all the way up until college and all the way up into their professional career through a mentorship program.
Now, what would what's required? Like to say, for example, I need to look into this. What to get like my daughter or something like this involved? Something like Nisby Jr.
Yeah, you get scholarships, you get grants and stuff like that, depending on the excellence of your child. There's field trips and stuff like that. Go to NASA, go to SpaceX, Tesla, things like that.
Yeah.
I've done it last year. I did my time last year, so I enjoyed it. I think most Black people should actually sign their sons and daughters up for it, especially their sons, because you get to see Black men in a more leadership role.
Right. Yeah, this is an institution that you don't hear too much about, man. You hear about our traditional institutions, our black caucuses and our NAACPs and all of that, but yeah, you never really hear too much about the National Society of Black Engineers.
It's excellent. I've been a member for for some years now. I think since I was in undergrad. So
What's the requirement to join?
you just have to be in STEM, some form of STEM.
I mean, like, what if you were like an entrepreneur, for example? Does it?
There's an entrepreneur section
Okay.
if you actually look at it. So you just register as a professional and then go into the entrepreneur section, and then you'll see like there's a forum for entrepreneurs. And especially depending on your region, I think you would probably be like region 5 or something like that. I'm in region 1, so region 1 would be like New England and New York. Um, so that's how that goes. So it's broken down by different different sections of each time zone. So it's probably about seven different regions.
Okay, gotcha. I may need to look into that myself.
Yeah, you
I mean,
get
and, for my daughter definitely, but also for myself.
yeah, it's all about networking. That's what I use it for. I use it for
Right.
networking. I do my mentorship. My mentorship should be coming up sometime next month. I know last December, just past, they were working on our robotics. So getting kids into robotics, 6, 7, 8 years old, with Lego Mindstorms, other things like Raspberry Pi
Hmm.
programming.
Yeah, they were gonna. They I know Lego had some sort of program that they were actually doing prior to my move at my daughter's school. Lego was involved with their STEM program, and so it had something to do with some of their more sophisticated kits, and it was being integrated into the learning platforms at the school.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I've brought up discussions at my annual meeting or for my annual regional meeting for focusing on micro transportation, drone technology,
Hmm.
that nature. Things that we talk about in the Brain Trust. Got their undivided attention. So
Okay.
they're all ears. But I think it's important that some people listen to this understand that a lot of these black kids, especially the black boys, they excel high. So you got undergraduate, double undergraduate degrees, graduate degrees in aerospace engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Yeah, they do everything. So there's kids with there's students, I should say. I shouldn't say kids, but there's students with very very in depth backgrounds in STEM. So
Hmm.
you want people like that on your team. And when we talk about uh, building out, black enterprises and stuff like that, those are the type of people you're gonna have to hire.
You need people with the technical know-how, and that's on all fronts. So your intelligentsia needs to be valued.
Hmm.
We need to place more value, more emphasis on that in developing, young brothers, young sisters, young kids into members of the intelligentsia, right? It shouldn't be just based on this notion of a talented tenth or something like that, but more of a more of a concerted effort to produce more, cerebral-minded children.
Yeah, this is the program I'm referring to right here, the Summer Engineering Excellence for Kids.
Hmm.
Um, Let me just read this real quick. The SEEK program is designed to be a fun and engaging educational experience led by NISBE engineering students and technical professionals dedicated to pursuing professional excellence and giving back to the community. The SEEK program utilizes a hands-on design curriculum. Students will work in teams using their knowledge to solve problems and create products while discovering the underlying math and science principles involved in these processes. Each week, students will take on a new project, culminating with a presentation, design competition, and physical competitions that all parents are encouraged to attend. It's a 3-week program. third through fifth graders.
Mr. Bryant, good evening, sir.
Good evening, gents.
Hey, what's going on, Paul?
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, so registration is up for that for the summer. It's just a whole wealth of things. If anybody wants to actually look into it, um, it's on the first item on the docket. So.
And Paul, you mentioned in the chat that your daughter was a part of the Lego STEM program also?
Yes, she was. The principal of the private school, of the first private school that my daughter went to after I sent her to the Montessori school, the principal of that school made it known that her focus was challenging the accepted notions of what children can be taught at a given age. So one of the things that she did was she liked to get the students involved in the Lego robotics program. So we're talking 2000, I want to say 2004, that my daughter got involved in the program. So they were researching, designing, and building their own robots from scratch and programming them, to perform tasks all the way up to fighting each other. So another thing that I would like to dovetail that with the National Society of Black Engineers, which was unaware of until I even first found out about the Black Brain Trust. But one of the things that the principal of my daughter's school told me was she highly recommended sending my daughter to the prep program and applying to the Manhattan prep schools. And one of the things that I asked her was, why would I want to do that? And what the principal told me very succinctly was, listen, you can either complain about things or you can have your daughter in these circles and amongst the people who generally direct the course of actions in this country and globally. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
people like a Richard Parsons and Kenneth Cheneau, all right, these are the places where these people um, came from. So that was all that I needed to know. Hold on a second.
Yes, sir. Who just joined?
Young Grizzly, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Young Grizzly?
Hey, gentlemen, I just got myself on mute here. Just getting a couple things done at work, but just listening in.
All good?
Yep.
Not something I'm familiar with, but it's a pretty cool program, though, especially for the kids.
Yeah, you can volunteer as well. So they're always looking for black male volunteers.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be bad.
I believe there's a chapter right next to you, not too far away from you. So.
Like right in the state and everything. Like, do they have like a chapter every state or region?
There's a chapter in every region, but I believe there's one right where you are.
Let me look.
I believe it's in the Miami area.
Yeah, let me look at the notes here and see which one's in my region.
Actually, let me pull this back up again and share my screen.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to drop off. My daughter is sick, and my mom came by to take care of her grandbaby, so now she needs a ride back home. So I will return to you gents later.
Hey, have a good one, Paul.
All good.
Thanks as always, Paul. Bye. Yeah, so Florida is Region 3, yep. And it looks like number 5. Looking at the map here. North Miami Senior High. Oh, okay. I know where that is. Oh, I mean, it's not that far. Oh, Stranahan High School is right down the street from me. there are high school plays at my high school's field, so that's
Okay.
like right in the backyard.
Okay.
That's cool. Like what? So something like this, I can probably even integrate it or even extend my own bit of mentorship to something like this. Maybe even start like some like I know you mentioned Raspberry Pi programs and things like that. Can you tell a little bit more? I know we have to move on, but
No.
if you could tell a little bit more about what you've done in this during your mentorship time or time during mentorship.
So my mentorship experience with them is actually working with the K through 12. Basically chaperone them at the Museum of Science and engaging the male youth, black male youth, and what they find desirable, and where their mindset is, and just kind of picking their brain. They pick my brain. How did I get involved? I think I've told the story before, but I got involved into electronics when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I was already working on, soldering and stuff like that. And then I got into computers. I got my first Tandy computer, and then a Packard Bell, and and IBM. Just a lot of hand-me-down stuff, but I tinkered a lot. So I tinkered a lot with radio-controlled cars, slot cars, record breakers, those type of those type of electronics. So I was always modifying things and you know putting maple syrup on the wheels of slot cars to make them stick to the track better. So I was always trying to advance.
Oh,
advance.
you know that trick.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's how I got started into that, and then I got into full computers, and then I got into IT, and then I did my undergrad in computer electronics and information systems, and then did my and then went on to do my grad. So I guess my point here in saying this is that there, you have to get started early. If you try to get started late, then what happens is you're already 10 years behind the kids that already started at 6 or 7 years old. And there's nothing wrong with that, but your mindset is not going to be in the same place that their mindset is going to be at your age. So if you're getting started at 19, 20, 21, or even 25, 26, those kids were already working on stuff at 5, 6, 7 years old. So you have to, that's what you're going up against.
Yeah, your mind is more receptive, more of a sponge at that age,
Hmm.
and still programmable, really.
Hmm.
Okay, that's cool. I think I'm gonna reach out to them. I'll put it on my list. How exactly do you make contact? Is there? Can
Once
you
you sign,
tell us how
once you sign up and you pay your registration fee, your membership fee, as a professional, you'll start to get emails and things like that. They're also listed on Eventbrite. So if you download the Eventbrite app or go to the eventbrite.com website, you'll see events that may be happening in your area. Sometimes the events are partnered with public schools or charter schools, so they're
Mhm.
not always necessarily posted on the NSBE website. Um, and that's how you get in.
And then in terms of like background checks, qualifications, anything like that. Um,
When you
just in
fill
case I
out
recommend this to other people.
when you fill out your registration, it'll ask you all these questions about where you go to school and what do you do for a living currently, and no one's actually going to necessarily call your boss or anything like that, but you put it down, and that's what stays with your profile.
I don't know. All right, cool.
Definitely worth it. I think it's like $65 for the year.
Yeah,
I'm gonna definitely look into it for the entrepreneurial program.
take it out of the business account.
Hmm.
All right, we can go to the next item on the docket.
All right. So first item on the docket is George Alcorn. So George Alcorn, uh, born in 1940. What is going on with my lights? Born in 1940. Um, has a undergrad in physics. Also has a doctorate in physics as well. So what? Let me just read this caption real quick. So George Alcorn Jr. was born on March 22nd, 1940, to George and Arletta Nixon Alcorn. His father was his father was an auto mechanic who sacrificed so Alcorn and his brother could get an education. Alcorn attended uh, Occidental College in Pasadena, California, where he maintained an excellent academic record while earning 8 letters in, in baseball and football. Alcorn graduated with a BA in physics in 1962, and in 1963 he completed his master's degree in nuclear physics from Howard University. During the summers of 1962 and 1963, Alcorn worked as a research engineer in the space division of North American Rockwell Computing Trajectories and Orbital Mechanics for Missiles. A NASA a NASA grant supported Alcorn's research on negative ion formation during the summers of 1965 to 1966. In 1967, he earned his doctorate from Howard University in atomic and molecular physics. After earning his PhD, Alcorn spent 12 years in industry. He was senior scientist at Philco Ford, senior physicist at Perkin-Elmer, and advisory engineer at IBM Corporation. In 1973, Alcorn was chosen to be IBM visiting professor in electrical engineering at Howard University, and he has held positions at that university ever since, rising to the rank full professor. Alcorn is also a full professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of District Columbia. He has taught courses ranging from advanced engineering, mathematics to microelectronics. Alcorn left IBM, where he worked as a second plateau inventor, to join NASA in 1978. While at NASA, Alcorn invented an imaging X-ray spectrometer using thermal thermal migration for aluminum, for which he earned a patent in 1984. And 2 years later, he devised an improved method of variegation using laser drilling. His work on imaging X-ray spectrometers earned him the 1984 NASA GSFC Inventor of the Year award. During the period, he also served as deputy project manager for advanced development, and in this position, he was responsible for developing new technologies required for the space station Freedom. Alcorn served as manager for advanced programs for NASA from 1990 to 1992, and his primary duties concerned the managing technology programs and evaluating technologies which were required GSFC. He also managed GSFC Evolution Program, concerned with ensuring that over its 30-year mission, the space station develops properly while incorporating new capabilities. Since 1992, Alcorn has served as the chief of Goddard's Office of Commercial Programs, supervising programs for technology transfer, small business innovation research, and the commercial use of space programs. He managed a shuttle flight experiment that involved robot-operated material processing system, or ROMPS, in 1994. The experiment involved the manufacturing of materials in the microgravity of space. In 1999, Alcorn was awarded Government Executive Magazine's prestigious Government Technology Leadership Award for the development and commercialization of the airborne LiDAR topographical mapping systems. In 2001, Dr. Alcorn was awarded special congressional recognition by Congresswoman Donna M. Christen for his effort in helping Virgin Islands business businesses through application of NASA technology and knowledge of technology programs. Until recently, Dr. Alcorn was the chief of the Office of Commercial Programs for the Goddard Space Flight Center. In 2005, he became an assistant director for Standards and Excellence, Applied Engineering and Technology Directorate. This guy is this. Let me finish reading this. Alcorn has over 20 inventions. Some of these have been patented, while others have been published. He is a recognized pioneer in the fabrication of plasma semiconductor devices, and his patent, quote, process for controlling the slope of a via hole, was an important contribution to the process of plasma etching. The procedure is now used by many semiconductor manufacturing companies. Alcorn was one of the first scientists to present a computer modeling solution of wet etch and plasma etch structures, and he has received several cash prizes for his inventions of plasma processing techniques. This brother is elite.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds as if like he could pretty much invent whatever comes to his mind.
Yeah, he's on another level of the brain
Yeah.
trust.
Yep. I know a couple of guys that are kind of close to that, but nah, not on that level.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
my mentor is one of them on when it comes to electrical engineering. But yeah,
hmm young Grizzly, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, as you said, he is very he's on definitely on the high scale, high end of intelligence, and I mean, this is kind of going back to what you said in the first thing about the about Nisby is that we can create people like this, and going to adding to what Complex said earlier is that we can actually create the intelligentsia, we create people that are that receptive and can do this work at this level and beyond.
Hmm.
That's it.
Right. I mean, this dude has 20 inventions. I mean, involved in plasma etching, um, robotics, the space station. He's on another level.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is that if you give certain people enough time, they can do that and more. And it's
Hmm.
kind of like creating that time for those people. So if they get in a position where they're making enough money, they don't have to worry about things. Or if uh, organizations like the Black Brain Trust start to get more money, and we can start funding things like this for people, you know, that's you can create this. This can happen. You can facilitate the growth of a person like this. And that's it. I'll keep it short.
Hmm. Alcorn invented an imaging X-ray spectrometer using thermal migration of aluminum. That's that's on some other stuff. That's what I look forward to. I hope at some point in my life I can invent at least one thing and patent it.
and see the other thing too, man, is that like when you have uh, you know companies that are in large scale industries, industrial industries. I mean, that's when guys like us, who maybe have like a basket of companies and stuff like that. We go to guys like him and we say, hey, look, man, what kind of deal can we work out to license the patents and stuff? And we leverage that proprietary, the proprietary technologies held in patents. We leverage it for our businesses.
Hmm.
So it's a top down. It literally starts like with the ideas, and then the ideas get the patents, and then from the patents, business ideas are developed off the patents, or you get the R&D portion of it, right? And then the remaining part, where it funnels down into the business side of it. But when it comes from the patent side and all the way down to the business side, man, it would be good if we held on to the business side of it and we leveraged it.
Right. It sounds like you're talking about like platform patenting, or a cooperative
Right.
yeah, a cooperative that functions off platform patenting. That does sound like something we should probably look into. All right, we'll get to the next. All right, this one is Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker was born in 1731 just outside of Baltimore, Maryland, the son of a slave. His grandfather had had been a member of a royal family in Africa and was wise in agricultural endeavors. His father, Robert, was an African slave who purchased his freedom, and his mother, Mary, was the daughter of a freed African slave, and an English woman. As a young man, he was allowed to enroll in school run by Quakers and excelled in his studies, particularly in mathematics. Soon he progressed beyond the capabilities of his teacher and would often make up his own math problems in order to solve them. I don't want to read too much into his legacy, but I do want to focus on the fact that
Dude did literally, well, he designed the White House, didn't he?
um let me just finish reading this real quick.
Yeah.
One day One day his family was introduced to a man named Joseph Levy who owned a watch. Young Benjamin was so fascinated by the object that Mr. Levy gave it to him to keep, explaining how it worked. Over the course of the next few days, Benjamin repeatedly took the watch apart and then put it back together. After borrowing a book on geometry and another on Isaac Newton's it's actually spelled wrong, principle, he made plans to build a larger version of the watch, mimicking a picture he had seen of a clock. After 2 years of designing the clock and craving each piece by hand, by carving each piece by hand, including the gears, Banneker had successfully created the first clock ever built in the United States. For the next 30 years, the clock kept perfect time. In 1776, the Third Continental Congress met and submitted the Declaration of Independence from England. Soon thereafter, the Revolutionary War broke out. Banneker set out to grow crops of wheat in order to help feed American troops. His knowledge of soil gained from his grandfather allowed him to raise crops in areas which had previously stood barren for years. When a family friend died and left him a book on astronomy, a telescope, and scientific inventions, Banneker became fascinated with the stars and the skies. His friends Joseph Elcott, Ellicott, loaned him books on astronomy as well as tools, and he taught himself astronomy and mathematics. His, he soon was able to predict events such as solar eclipse, and sunrises and sunsets. In 1792, he developed his first almanac, predicting weather and seasonal changes, and also included tips on planting crops and medical remedies. Banneker sent a copy of his book to Thomas Jefferson at the time Secretary of State, and in 12 page and in a 12 page should be letter. A 12-page letter expressed to Jefferson that blacks in the United States possess equal intellectual capacity and mental capabilities as those whites who were described in the Declaration of Independence. As such, he stated, blacks should also be afforded the same rights and opportunities afforded to whites. This began a long correspondence between the two men and would extend over several years. Around the same time, President Washington decided to move the nation's capital from Philadelphia to an area on the border of Maryland and Virginia, and Major Drew Ellicott asked Banneker to assist in surveying the federal territory. Major Pierre L'Enfant from France was commissioned to develop the plans for the new city at Jefferson's request. Banneker was included as one of the men appointed to assist him. Banneker consulted frequently with L'Enfant and studied his draft and plans for the capital city carefully. Elephant was subject to great criticism and hostility because he was a foreigner and abruptly resigned from the project and moved back to France. This is excuse me. Go ahead, listen.
I was gonna say, man, you know, I did a lot of my studies as a kid on Benjamin Banneker. And you know, I've read different stories about him, and one thing that I've come to learn about the dude was that one, he was of royal lineage. Two, that whole former slave stuff is false. But I mean, that's an aside. I really want to just speak to the dude's sheer brilliance, though, right? Because there's a lot of other things that this dude had done. You know, he had also like created like new variants of like fruits and stuff. You know, by crossbreeding different types of plants and creating new fruiting plants and stuff. This dude was just amazing.
He was basically like a walking Google assistant. If that made any sense. You know, you input some form of inquiry, and then it spits back some.
This dude would spit back out something, right? This dude, it was like he just you're right. That's exactly what he was like. Yeah.
Young Grizzly.
I think Mike is working.
No, I'm saying I was signaling. I have nothing on that. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so I am working though, so I'm like transferring files from one server to the next. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're just talking about Benjamin Banneker. All right, I thought that comment he made about blacks being equal, intellectually equal to whites, was profound at the time. The climate that he made that comment.
Yeah, doesn't suggest that he comes from slave roots.
Well, if you're talking in reference to that, that's just something. That's just a trope that's always been. That's still an issue that people actually still like, you know, spread as if it's some type of truth. And then you see some of these black inventors, because I even wrote a small little comment on another video somewhere else on the internet, on YouTube, and the amount of black inventors and what they did. And actually, there's one black inventor, a female black inventor. She's more recent, and she was the creator of the voice over IP protocol. And I believe she is she on the docket as well?
No, she'll be on the docket two hangouts for now.
Good. All right. But yeah, you know, you have people like that, and then you know that's literally the basis of telecommunications today.
Right.
You know, and then into the future. So it's like, you know, you went from analog to like digital, and then you know you have something that's even more advanced that is using the internet and you know the actual infrastructure that's put in place right now. So it's kind of, when you hear a statement like that, and the fact that you're still hearing things like you're still hearing that being brought up and challenged, it's just it's disheartening. But that's the most I could put into it. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Peace to Brother Lionel, of course.
Oh, what's going on, Lionel?
Hello. Excuse me. Hello, all. How y'all doing today?
Good, brother. Yourself?
All right.
Oh, real quick, I think Nate said he wanted me to just elaborate on Ben Banneker's lineage. He's kind of he would be sort of like his lineage would kind of be like your prototypical African American of today. It's kind of like it's a mixed melanated races and stuff like that, and I think someone in his family was European or something like that. But he was on his father's side. From his father was of royal lineage from the continent. So like when they tell the story, like you got to understand like where this dude gets his brilliance from. Like he was a very well educated child. Okay, came over here on what would be considered like your modern day H-1B. type of thing, work apprenticeship type of thing. You know, the dude was never a slave like that. And the reason why I'm making it a point is because this is what's always done to negate what it is that we've created that has largely shaped this country. If you say like a black person invented something like some time back, or that they were very significant in an event or an invention or something like that, they reduce the significance of it by saying, oh, he was just some slave dude who saw that there was a screw missing, or some dumb shit like that, you know. And they don't.
No, I was just gonna say, or they worry about what his DNA was. You know, whether or not he was 100% black, he was light skinned, he had, you know, he had hazel eyes.
Right.
Dusty
You
baby
know.
milk.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like it doesn't. It's like if you strip all that away, then what you see is you just see someone who looks like you, who was brilliant, man, who was absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let me get to this next one real quick. All right, this next one is Otis Boykin. Born on August 29th, 1920 in Dallas, Texas. After graduating high school, he attended Fisk College in Nashville, Tennessee. He graduated in 1941 and took a job as a laboratory assistant with the Majestic Radio and TV Corporation in Chicago. He undertook various tasks, but excelled at testing automatic aircraft controls, ultimately serving as a supervisor. 3 years later, he left Majestic and took a position as a research engineer with the P.J. Nielsen Research Laboratories soon thereafter. He decided to try to develop a business of his own and own a founded Boykin Fruit Incorporated. At the same time, he decided to continue his education, pursuing graduate studies at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. He attended classes in 1946 and 1947, but was forced to drop out because he lacked the funds to pay for next year's tuition. Damn, they even had Sally Mae back then. Despite the setback, Boykin realized that a master's degree was not a prerequisite for inventive competence. He set out to work on a project that he had contemplated while in school. Otis Boykin, at the time, the field of electronics was very popular among the science community, and Boykin took a special interest in working with resistors. A resistor is an electronic component that slows the flow of electrical current. This is necessary to prevent too much electricity from passing through a component than is necessary or even safe. Boykin sought and received a patent for wire precision resistor on June 16, 1959. This resistor allowed for a specific amount of current to flow through a specific purpose and would be used in radios and televisions. 2 years later, he created another resistor that could be manufactured very inexpensively. It was a breakthrough device as it could withstand extreme changes in temperature and withstand various levels of pressure and physical trauma without impairing its effectiveness. The chip was cheaper and more reliable than others on the market. Not surprisingly, it was in great demand as he received orders from consumer electronics manufacturers, the United States military, and electronic behemoths like IBM. In 1964, the Boykin moved to Paris, creating electronic innovations for a new market of customers. Most of these creations involve electrical resistance components, including small component thick film resistors used in computers and variable resistors used in guided missile systems. But he also created other important products, including a chemical air filter and a burglar-proof cash register. His most famous invention, however, was a control unit for the pacemaker, which used electrical impulses to stimulate the heart and create steady heartbeat. In the tragic irony, Boykin died in 1982 as a result of a heart failure. Otis Boykin proved that The setback of having to drop out of school was not enough to deter him from his dream of becoming an inventor and having a long-lasting effect on the world. I know. What's your take on this?
Man, that's an interesting story. What you just said is proving that him not being able to finish that master's degree in the school also wasn't a reflection on him not being able to become great and do and make inventions like he did. He traveled. He made quite a few inventions. I'm sure, if not uh, all of those inventions, are still used in the world today and and form the basis of other inventions to build on top of.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I looked up some of the inventions and or some of the products that benefited from his innovations, and the Raytheon Hawk um, surface-to-air missile system
Yeah.
um, actually benefited from his components, which was used during the Cold War. Um, I didn't know he made the pacemaker. That's something new to me. Definitely, definitely thinking forward. I'm surprised he didn't put one in his own chest.
that's wow.
Hmm.
I think another part of that story is that he actually made the pacemaker for his mother, or he made it in spirit of his mother that had died
Hmm.
previously. I could be confusing him with someone else, but yeah, I think that's part of the story as well. Just
Hmm.
quite you know, it's motivational. Like that's he did it for somebody that and it affected somebody in his own personal life, and then he went on to actually make something to help others. So
Another black man saves the world.
yeah, exactly, and nobody cares.
Mm.
Exactly.
Quite complex.
Oh no, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't gonna say anything. You were gonna say something complex or no? Okay, I think complex is on punishment. Self care boss, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, we'll go to this next one. Granville Woods. The magnitude of an inventor's work can often be defined by esteem in which he is held by fellow inventors. If this is the case, then Granville Woods was certainly a respected inventor, as he was often referred to as the Black Thomas Edison. Granville Woods was born on April 23rd, 1856, in Columbus, Ohio. He spent his early years attending school until the age of 10, at which point he began working in a machine shop repairing railroad equipment and machinery. Intrigued by the electricity that powered the machinery, Wood studied other machine workers as they attended to different pieces of equipment and paid other workers to sit down and explain electrical concepts to him. Over the next few years, Woods moved around the country working on railroads and in steel rolling mills. The experience helped to prepare him for a formal education studying engineering. Surprisingly, it is unknown exactly where he attended school, but is believed it was a Eastern college. After 2 years of studying, Woods obtained a job as an engineer on a British steamship called the Ironsides. 2 years later, he obtained employment with D&S Railroads, driving a steam locomotive. Unfortunately, despite his high aptitude and valuable education and expertise, Woods was denied opportunities and promotions because of the color of his skin. Out of the frustration and a desire to promote his abilities, Woods, along with his brother, um, Yates, formed the Woods Railroad Telegraph Company in 1884. The company manufactured and sold telephone, telegraph, and electrical equipment. One of the early inventions from the company was an improved steam boiler furnace, and this was followed by an improved telephone transmitter, which had superior clarity of sound and could provide a longer range of distance for transmission. In 1885, Woods patented a apparatus which was a combination of a telephone and telegraph. The device, which he called uh, tele, um, tel- telephony, would allow a telegraph station to send voice and telegraph messages over a single wire. The device was so successful that he later sold it to the American Bell Telephone Company in 1887. Was developed his most important invention to date, a device he called synchronous multiplex rail, a variation of induction telegraph. It allowed messages to be sent from moving trains and railway stations. By allowing dispatchers to know the location of each train, it provided great safety and decreased railway accidents. Granville, Granville Woods often had difficulties enjoying his success as other inventors made claims to his devices. Thomas Edison made one of these claims, stating that he had first created a similar telegraph and that he was entitled to the patent for the device. Woods was twice successful in defending himself, proving that there were no other devices upon which he could have depended or relied upon to make his device. After the second defeat, Edison decided that it would be better to work with Granville Woods than against him, and thus offered him a position with the Edison Company. In 1892, Woods used his knowledge of electrical systems in creating a method of supplying electricity to a train without any exposed wires or secondary batteries. Approximately every 12 feet, electricity would be passed to the train as it passed over an iron block. He first demonstrated the device as an amusement apparatus at the Coney Island amusement park, and while it amused patrons, it would be a novel approach towards making safer travel for trains. Very interesting, our brother. He invented the first IoT before there was even IoT.
Right.
Lionel, you have anything you want to add to this?
Okay, the train. Okay, with the train invention, can someone explain that to me again? Or it was no, it said every 12 feet. The yeah, I need a little bit more clarification.
So basically, every 12 feet, part of the one of the blocks on the train track is charged. So electricity would basically go from the track to the car from the track via the wheel, right? And so that's how it's actually powered. And every 12 feet, there's like that charge block in the track.
Oh, okay.
And they still use it this very day.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
That's some good stuff then.
You know, self-care boss says Thomas Edison is thieving. Oh, did he ever? But what else is new?
Anybody got any other comments on this one?
No, I didn't hear what Ulysses said about self-care boss.
Oh no, she had said that Thomas Edison was thieving.
Oh, they were all thieving.
That was what I was saying. There, what else is new? Yeah, they were all thieving. Mm-hmm.
They were all thieving. They're not slick. They're not slick. You know, the thing is, if Thomas Edison was so if he was so great at what he was doing, then why couldn't he prove how he did it?
The guy never had he never had proof of concepts for anything.
Right. And that, you know, that's why you have blockchain now. Proof of stake, proof of work, proof of concept.
That's what eliminates the thieving, right? Because if you have an apparatus in place where it's largely just somebody behind the desk that puts a stamp on a patent application, and that's what signifies that the patent is the idea was originated in your mind, right? And it's not based on the fact that you walked into the patent office with a working model. Then yeah. The individuals who can just walk in and say, "Hey, give me the stamp on that application," they're going to win all day long. Or at least what they'll have is they'll be granted the ability to thief your ideas.
Right. And there was no real consequences. It wasn't like, you know, the Federal Bureau of Investigations or something like that was going to kick in their door and hold them as a material witness or something like that.
Right. You're going to sue?
Yeah. And all of this came out of the fact that he was denied opportunities. So what we saw with Benjamin not Benjamin Banneker, Otis Boykin, it still happens to this very day.
Yeah.
Or Benjamin Banneker.
Let me just read this other comment here. Self-care boss, she says, I wonder how the quest for, I'm sorry, I don't, that's a she? I think it's a she. Okay. I wonder how the quest for patents work. Do some people have knowledge that you're submitting paperwork and can steal it from you or convince you to hold off? It really depends the venue, the venue that you're operating in, type of patent that you're applying for. Like, okay, are you in a research laboratory with other people around you? And are they doing similar types of research? Because that's one way where, ideas can be thieved easily, versus if you take a series of measures, right, to protect any idea. So like if you have an idea, then, you develop it largely in secret. What you'll want to do is all of your concepts, you'll want to get, all your concepts copyrighted, right? Any sort of 3D sketch materials or any files, all that type of stuff becomes like IP, intellectual property, right? You created it. It came out of your mind and into the software. You saved it as a whatever type of file. Okay, all these things you're going to legally put into your possession. So there's a process that you want to do nowadays. These processes weren't in place back then, but they're largely in place now. But there's things that you'll want to do to safeguard your ideas.
One thing I know about patents is when you're putting them in, even once they're applied or once you apply for them, one thing they tell you to do is to And these are kind of like little life hacks or what have you. You know, you would send a certified letter to yourself and never open it, or send it via FedEx, UPS, or something like that, and never open it. And then what that would do is give you a date and time for when you actually, or it validates or proves really, yeah, a date and time from when you've done this. So when they open up the document, then they can see, oh, okay, this person did this on in 2008 or something like that, and you're applying for this patent in 2011, and all this information seems like it's exactly the same, and these are the original documents, what have you. Also, once you actually apply for a patent and it actually goes into the patent process, that's why you see things like patent pending. When it's in the pending process, you still own that IP or intellectual property, and you can actually work under it and do things and license things under it. But that doesn't mean that it's a full-on patent where this idea has been vetted and no one else can actually challenge it in a sense, or you are the originator of that idea. It's still being checked.
Now, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I'll go after you finish.
Oh, yeah. So, and even I was looking. One thing you can do beforehand is for look for a patent, or look for something, an information about what you're trying to do, and see if it's already out there, so that you don't step on any or steal, in a sense, someone else's intellectual property. Because I was looking to do something like that, and the idea wasn't new, when I did it, and the person that had it had a lot of work already done, and there was a lot of like spin-offs to that patent that were connected to it. So once these things are put in place, you can still have the patent pending, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be done by the patent office itself, and that does take quite a bit of time. Also, last thing, sorry, Ulysses, you want to look into doing international patents, because something is patented in the U.S., of course, it doesn't have an international patent to it, so anybody around the world can go ahead and take it and do whatever they want to. And I think somebody sneezed and said China.
China.
Somebody just went ahead and said it. Okay. So China. Like a friend of mine, he actually did something along the lines of Twilio, I think it was a voice messaging product, and it was stolen by Huawei. And there's nothing you can do, because pretty much Huawei is a part of or is heavy with the Chinese government, and of course he didn't have any type of international patent for his work, his intellectual property, his code, and it was it. So like he couldn't really. He tried to sue, but there's not much you can do in terms of money, unless you had some type of backer that would actually go ahead and sponsor him for the lawsuit and go from there. That's it.
Well, China doesn't
hey, Paul, what's going on, man? You're back.
Hey,
Paul, how you doing?
Hey, Lionel. Hey, Young Riz.
Hey, brother.
China doesn't really have copyright laws and patent laws like we do here in the U.S., which is why every automaker, the U.S. automakers, and even now the Germans, are feeling the pinch of, they sell their vehicles there. Chinese company buys it and literally clones it and sells it under a different name, and that is illegal under the Chinese statutes and Chinese laws. Of course, as Dollar Will was asking last night, how does China operate? Pretty much if you are a large business owner in China, you're either a blood member, ex-military, family, friend, or associate of someone in the Chinese Central Communist Party. So you pretty much have carte blanche to do whatever you want, as long as you keep the money flowing to their pockets. So it's pretty much a field day over there in China as far as copyright infringement goes and patent laws.
Yeah, and they don't believe in that. They believe in shared knowledge, and shared ideas. The only secrets in China is how the communist government stays in power. So They actually copied a Russian fighter jet, and it was falling apart. It was actually killing some of their pilots because they copied it, but they copied some of the wrong ratifications that were in it. And the planes were falling out of the sky, and they went to the Russian government trying to find out, well, how come this doesn't work? Well, maybe because you stole it. How about that?
You actually asked?
Yeah, they asked, and the Russians told them to stop stealing our stuff. I think the Russians purposely put bugs inside the design so that that would happen, right? They knew that the Chinese would probably do something like that.
You know what?
Yeah,
backdoors.
That's very popular in terms of programming, and I've even done that. It's a part of obfuscation of code. It's almost like a key, so it's just a little bit of code that doesn't allow certain things to run or run properly all the time. So you can actually definitely do that, and then once you don't have that little bit of a code block in the program or in your bit of code, then it won't run properly, and then they have to come to you, or they have to reverse engineer it in a way, or engineer the solution for that.
The U.S. military was doing the same thing during the 80s, because the Russian spies, the KGB, was all over the U.S. military. They had no idea that the KGB had those deep cover agents who had been here since the 50s and 60s. So the U.S. military industrial complex would sometimes purposely engineer technology wrong. So when the Russians stole it and copied it, it literally wouldn't work, or lives would be lost.
Mm-hmm. They did the same thing to a pipeline, to a oil pipe. I think it was an oil pipeline, and they tried to install it, and it blew up in their face when they copied it. Another issue here with patents, and this will probably be the last before we go on to the next one. Huawei actually came to be by stealing their patents from Nortel Networks, and then they stole a lot of technology from Cisco, even down to the bug layer of their routers and switches. So 3Com, who's an old legacy network company, actually went to China and merged tried to acquire Huawei, but they actually merged and became H3C. And from H3C, HP later came in 2004, 2005, and actually made the acquisition of H3C as a company, and that's how Huawei got into America.
Okay.
And that's how HP got their switches and routers.
Right, like the whole Huawei deal. If you look at the Huawei line of switches, even down to the actual base plates, the bezels are pretty much the same. There's really no difference. And we're talking about the Nexus class series of Cisco switches. It's just that deep, or it's just that copied in a sense, or that's the level of copying that they were involved in, and they do that with like pretty much all of their products. And there's a lot of reverse engineering. There's a lot of just products that are just put out there as fast as possible to their public, and they don't create much themselves. What they'll do is fix one or two little bugs and then go from there.
Jesse in the chat is also mentioning Segway is another famous company, and basically there's a company. They go by the name Ninebot, and basically Ninebot jacked Segway's designs. I'm literally standing on one of them right now.
Well, the Chinese actually bought Segway.
Well, they bought Segway after they essentially kind of tanked. They tanked them financially because they copied their designs. It's similar to what happened with Fisker. I want to say it was Fisker. It's the same thing. They were the battery manufacturer for Fisker before Fisker ultimately got acquired by the battery manufacturer that was supplying Fisker. So it's like this weird thing where it's like they'll have like the Chinese firm will be like a large scale supplier for the company. And what'll happen is that the development costs and everything with regards to the company ultimately runs the company out. And then the Chinese firm is like looking at them and looking at what it is they've been developing and says, you know what, that's an attractive buy. Snatch them up.
Hmm.
You know, if you look at the Japanese car industry, they basically did the same thing. They would just buy American cars, they would clone them and copy them, and they would repackage them. The key difference is the Japanese used the American auto technology as a jumpstart to their own auto industry and then took off on their own because the Japanese used to copy the Americans and the Germans. Not so much the Germans, but mostly the Americans until the Japanese were able to self-sustain and create their own automotive tech. So by the time the 70s started to roll around,
Man, they were killing it.
exactly, they were actually far surpassing everything that U.S. Tech had. The height of which being, if you look at the Honda Civic HF,
Hmm.
which was based off of which was the high efficiency version of the CRX. That engine had, it was basically a carburetor which had a second chamber to it, and it would manually self adjust to altitude and air pressure. So that engine always gave you a minimum of 55 miles
Yep.
to a gallon of gas, regardless of your altitude, whether you were at sea level or 1 mile above ground. And this is 1980s manual technology that the Japanese created. So it's funny, the Chinese could do that, but so far they're not. They're just cloning everyone else. They're not they're not following the Japanese model of cloning to get their own technology in industry started.
Hmm. Let me just get to this real quick. This one is about Benjamin Thornton. In 1935, Benjamin Thornton created a device that could be attached to a telephone and could be set to record a voice message from a caller. By utilizing the clock attachment, the machine could also forward the messages as well as keep track of the time they were made. The device was the predecessor of today's answering machine in 1935.
They also didn't mention that Benjamin Thornton was also to put music behind his message when he called and got the voice
Yeah.
message. Right.
Is that serious?
No. No, I'm not.
Wait, what? That's pretty cool. In 1935. Okay.
Hmm.
It,
Goes to show you how
look,
old
it's kind of
all this
like
stuff is.
it's just like a couple nights ago we were talking, and I was talking about how like back in the late 19th century they had the invention of the electric car was the electric car was in existence in the late 19th century, and in the early 20th century, Nikola Tesla had developed means of wireless energy transfer. And so when you look at these technologies that we marvel at today, but they existed back then, and it's like it's not so much of a stretch to say that some brother, you know, invented a answering machine.
Hmm. All right, this next one is Lewis Temple. Lewis Temple was born in 1800 as a slave in Richmond, Virginia. He obtained his freedom and moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1829, where he worked as a blacksmith. Later that year, he married Mary Clark, with whom he would later have three children. I'm hearing a lot of feedback from brothers on the panel. If you can mute yourself, please. He also opened a whalecraft store. Through, although he had no experience with whaling or as a seaman, in 1845, Temple was enjoying so much success that he was able to open a larger whalecraft store. the New England region was the capital of the whaling industry. Whale meat and oil was very valuable, and the industry provided jobs to seamen and seafront businesses. A big concern for these people was the inability to develop a surefire method of successfully hunting whales. The existing methods of the day often ended in failure as the whales were would disengage themselves from the whalers' harpoons by spinning and thrashing about. In 1848, Temple set out to make improved harpoon that would withstand the enormous strength of the large mammals and would be difficult to escape from. He developed a harpoon with a pivoting head that stayed embedded within the creature, calling the invention Temple's toggle or Temple's iron. The harpoon was actually very similar to hunting tools used by whale hunters during prehistoric times. His harpoon became a great success, but he never patented it. As such, many blacksmiths began copying the device and selling it as their own. Nonetheless, he enjoyed the success that he needed to build an even larger shop. That's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's too bad they didn't have a legal Zoom back then.
I know, right? 30 minutes, man. You just hit the submit button. You're done.
Yeah.
You know, it is absolutely amazing sometimes that you don't have to invent something that's so out of this world technologically advanced, as long as it's something that has such a useful need
Right.
that advances everything else. You can make an unbelievable amount of money. There is an Italian gentleman here in New York City, and he owns one of the largest foundation companies here in the city. And what he did was he invented a very simple device when they drive piles, right? They base those giant metal beams into the ground when they're doing foundation work. He very simply he welded together and created a metal spike and welded it on the bottom of that pile, made it a lot easier to drive piles into the ground. Very simple. He patented it. He's set for life. He makes so much money from that device that he invented. So the point is, sometimes just the simplest thing, you have to patent it. If you make something, patent it. Get paid. Because at the end of the day, money is the most important thing. Money
And
talks, people walks.
I was going to say another thing to that, Paul, is that creating working prototypes, proof of concepts has gotten so much easier and faster with the advent of 3D printing. So it's like it's even more important to patent those ideas, because you can go from a patent to a working proof of concept to small batch manufacture to money in the bank. 30 to 60 days.
AutoCAD has now advanced to the next stage where they're using those VR Oculus goggles, combining that with AutoCAD. Engineers are now virtually designing things where they're not even touching a pen and paper. They're virtually designing and testing and engineering before creating an actual physical working model.
So they're literally designing it like in space.
Correct.
We did a hangout covering that a few months ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we talk about the Chinese copying everybody's patents and things like that. But at one point, white people were copying all the black people's patents and running away with it. Before there were Chinese were knocking everybody's designs. It was actually the white man who was copying.
Didn't recently. So isn't somebody there's like a sister who's like taking up the whole sort of was the company that is it owns Hennessy, right? Because you know, there's a brother that of course there's gonna be some brothers that a brother that invented Hennessy, but that formula, that recipe, right? It was the Hennessy
It was Jack
family.
Daniels.
Jack Daniels, that's who it was. I'm sorry, I don't drink the stuff. So Jack Daniels, that's who it was. That was a brother that was his recipe.
Hmm.
But at the time he was a slave.
Yeah, well, I
Really?
get. Well, so wait. I guess so. Again, I guess so. The simple fact that you were a slave, right? I guess that negates your $1 billion fucking idea.
Well, you
Well,
didn't have any
slaves at
rights.
that time,
Yeah, you
right?
didn't have any
Didn't
rights.
have any rights.
You didn't have any. What
They,
I'm saying is this: you didn't have any rights, but the idea itself has value.
Well, you're thinking about morality, and you're talking about pale-faced people. There's a
Well,
contradiction.
well, no, no, no. Damn.
I think we're in the wrong hangout. There's arguing
Yeah, we are.
going on. You may want to move this conversation there. Jokes.
Okay,
Just
okay.
being facetious. Facetious.
Let me get to this next one. We only have so much time on the docket. All right, this next one is about Thomas Stewart. Many inventions were born from necessity, and others for convenience. Others, however, are designed to lessen the uh, drudgery and unpleasantness of daily tasks, such was the invention of Thomas Stewart. Cleaning floors had always meant scrubbing them on your hands and knees using a scrub brush and rags. Thomas Stewart envisioned an easier, less painful way, using a cloth connected to a stick and handle and held in place by a metal clasp. Stewart presented the world with the invention of the mop.
Come again? Come on. Are you serious?
Well, I mean, women were protesting back then. It was the first wave, and they weren't happy with being on their hands and knees scrubbing floors. So,
You know what? You know what? My response came from really it was a black guy who invented the mop. But I'll say this: um, there was a time when the iron was literally a piece of metal with a wooden handle, and you put it on the stove, and the fire heated that piece of metal.
mhm.
That was your iron. That's what you know. So someone had to invent this electric device we now know as the iron. So I understand where trying to relieve daily drudgery, can lead to the invention of certain devices, such as the vacuum cleaner.
Mhm.
hey, Paul, I think I may have used that iron once before in my life.
You know,
I got
bro.
beat one when I was younger.
What an iron? What an
the
iron?
No, but like,
the
but
original
I have
irons.
used that
God
thing
damn!
before, I believe.
The hell did you do?
That was a dusty
Something
beta
I had no
milk.
business doing.
Well, you have to remember, Mike is like myself. He may have been born here, but at least one of his parents is from born and raised in the West Indies. So their method of discipline in this country would literally be considered child abuse.
Hmm.
But I'll say this: I didn't go to jail, and I've been successful in life. So how bad it was it really?
Yeah, you could have been using a mop. What were you going to say, Lionel?
Nah. It was a little joke, but the window closed.
All right, next guy is Richard Spikes. Inventors often toil for their entire lifetimes creating creating devices which have beneficial effects on societies for years. Yet that inventor might gain recognition only after he or she has passed away. For others, even after they have gone, the recognition is slow in coming despite their great contributions. Richard Spikes is such a person. Little has been written about Richard Spikes in terms of his childhood, education, and personal life. What is known is that he was an incredible inventor, and the proof of this is in the incredible diverse number of creations that have had a major impact on lives of everyday citizens. Of course, over the course of his lifetime, Spikes developed the following inventions of innovation: railroad semaphore in 1906, automatic car wash in 1913, automobile directional signals 1913, beer keg tap 1910, self-locking rack for billet queues 1910, continuous contact trolley pole 1919, combination milk bottle opener and cover 1926, method and apparatus for obtaining average samples and temperature of tank liquids 1931, automatic gear shift 1932, transmission and shifting thereof 1933, automatic shoe shine shear 1939, multiple barrel machine gun 1940, horizontally swinging barber chair 1950, and automatic safety brake 1962.
Bro, are you telling me that this gentleman invented an automatic transmission?
That's what I was just about to say, man.
Because I always thought the general wisdom is that it was either Dodge or General Motors that invented the automatic transmission in the 50s.
No, there was automatic transmission back then.
So if that's the case, that one invention itself should literally have made that man a billionaire.
Billion. He like literally, dude.
Literally. The automatic transmission literally
Do you know how many
displaced
cars
the
have an
pain.
automatic transmission in it?
Everything on this earth was a manual transmission until the automatic replaced it.
Dude, like I'm saying.
For his innovative designs of transmission and gear shifting devices, Spikes received over $100,000, an enormous sum for a black man in the 1930s. That would be considered billions today. By the time he was creating the automatic safety brake in 1962, Spikes was losing his vision, and in order to complete the device, he first created a drafting design for blind designers, Braille. By the time his braking device was completed, he was deemed legally blind. The device would soon be found in almost every school bus in the nation.
How this individual is not a multi-billionaire with a legacy of multi-billions is a crime against humanity.
Dude, I'm saying, look at all that shit right there. Look at that.
I mean, you were literally talking, this gentleman invented inventions which literally changed the world.
He invented the fucking beer keg tap. Are you serious? He should be a billionaire just from that.
The railroad semaphore, for those who are unaware, that is your precursor to, because I've researched that somewhat, that's your precursor to remote switching signals and stoplights. So where you're at a central location, and from that location you can track trains and then remotely operate the switches and the signaling lights. Think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the automatic transmission his patent may be relevant to the engine's design at the time. So it may not have transferred over into other vehicles, right? That's probably how they worked out the patent. That's probably why you don't hear too much about it. But I mean, then again, he's a black man, so I'm not surprised that you don't hear anything about it. But um, I can't imagine that an automatic transmission that he designed would be compatible with all other types of vehicles, right?
Well, I mean, look, it says that the patent was issued at what, 1933.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering what vehicle applications his patent found their way into. Because let's just say if they were like, you know, classic cars and stuff like that that were using his designs, then theoretically speaking, anyone who was like remanufacturing transmission components to go into those cars, like OEM
Hmm.
type stuff, he should be seeing royalties from all that.
Yeah, he
Dude,
should be like the AC Delco.
Exactly. Yep.
absolutely. Because, to geek out for one quick second,
Hmm.
there isn't a huge leap from a manual transmission to an automatic. All right. Instead of shifter forks, you have these cones and mini clutches, but it's not a huge mechanical leap from an automatic to a manual transmission. So I don't. But you know what? Again, as you said, it was the 30s, and he was black, which probably explains why it was about a further 20 years before the U.S. automakers brought the first automatic transmission cars to market.
Hmm.
Hmm. You had something to say, Lionel? All right, maybe not.
I think Lionel has frozen solid and cold out there in Chicago.
He's probably talking. He probably didn't unmute himself.
Oh,
Lionel, can you hear us?
My bad, my bad. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
You have anything you want to add to this?
No, no.
Okay. Yeah, the continuous contact trolley pole. They still use that to this very day.
absolutely.
Oh, in San Francisco, right?
And everywhere, anywhere that uses a trolley, that they're using that because your power comes from overhead. It doesn't come from the bottom.
Oh, as a matter of fact, the Metro train here in Chicago uses it.
Dude, it's literally used around the world. It looks different. It's no longer a pole. It's covered and it looks like an articulating transformer arm, but it's the same concept.
Hmm.
You know, the Otto, the gentleman from Germany, he invented the four-cycle engine,
Hmm.
okay, which went into the first automobile, which was invented by Gottlieb Daimler. Engineers talk about the Otto cycle engine. Why don't It's amazing that no one talks about what's his gentleman's name, Perkins. No one talks about the uh, uh, Perkins the Perkins transaxle, Perkins transmission.
Hmm. Sam Perkins.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm getting his name wrong because I'm horrible with names.
Hmm.
But I'm speechless to look at the
Hmm.
list of literal world changing devices this man created, and this is the first time I've ever hearing about him.
I I want to say that the first car that had an automatic transmission back then was the at least to my knowledge it was American, but I'm trying to not just was it the Studebaker?
It may have been. That's possible. GM and Dodge had better marketing,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to say it was the 1950s. It wasn't until the 1950s when the first Electroglide and Selectroglide transmissions came on the market because
Hmm.
all vehicles were manual transmission, from cars to tanks to trucks to everything.
But I could have swore that the Italians with the Fiat, or was it the Fiat, or was it the Maserati? I I could have swore they had an automatic transmission at one point too.
Hmm. I can't speak to that.
But
I would
you
have
you know what? There was so many cars back then that they were Europeans were spitting out all types of contraptions that just weird, just weird things. You know,
yeah.
The old school Citroens, how those things used to look. All
all,
those
all, the, all types of Italian cars coming out of
French cars, yeah,
Fiat.
Pujols. Mhm.
Stutz.
What's that? Which one?
Stutz.
Studs.
You you're unfamiliar with the Stutz Bearcat?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. That
Okay.
was an Austrian brand, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's Austrian. Yeah, amazing. Kudos to this brother, man. I tip my hat to him, Richard Spikes.
Absolutely.
Was just like a good brother too.
Mike, I hope you learned your lesson from being a dusty beta male coon.
I would hope so as an adult. Maybe I need some more tattoos.
Do not bring such drama and disgrace to this forum. This
And you
house
have to,
call.
and
Keep it pure. Keep it pure.
and Mike, you have to have those braids on your head that look like a spider is living on top of your head, and then put either colored spray in the braids or colored beads.
Yeah, maybe some ringworms will go with it.
Right.
All right, this next brother is Norbert Rilio. I think that's his name. I think that's how you pronounce it. Safety and efficiency and profitability. These are the major reasons for the success of an invention, as well. And even greater qualification is when the invention revolutionizes an industry and overwhelming effect on society. Norbert can certainly be seen to have achieved all of these goals. Um, Norbert Rillieux was born on March 17th, 1806, in New Orleans, Louisiana. Norbert was born a free man, although his mother was a slave. His father was a wealthy white engineer involved in the cotton industry. As a child, Norbert was educated in the Catholic school system in New Orleans, but was sent to Paris, France, for advanced schooling. He studied at L'École Centrale, the top engineering school in the country, and at age 24 became an instructor of applied mathematics at the school, the youngest person to achieve this position. He published a series of papers related to, quote, the functions of economic implications of the steam engine. Eventually, in 1834, Rilot returned home to his father's plantation, which was now also being used to process and refine sugar. Sugarcane had become the dominant crop within Louisiana, but the sugar refining process employed at the time was extremely dangerous and very inefficient, known as the Jamaica train. The process called for sugarcane to be boiled in huge open kettles and then strained to allow the juice to be separated from the cane. The juice was then evaporated by boiling it at extreme temperatures, resulting in granules of granules being left over from in the form of sugar. The danger the danger stemmed from the fact that the workers were forced to transport the boiling juice from one kettle to the other to another, chance, chancing the possibility of suffering severe burns. It was also a very costly process considering the large amount of fuel needed to heat the various kettles. During the 1830s, France witnessed the introduction of the steam operated single pan vacuum. The vacuum pan was enclosed in an area with the air removed. This was necessary because the liquids can boil at a lower temperature in the absence of air than the air present, thus costing less. Rillieux decided to improve greatly on this efficiency by including a second and later a third pan, with each getting with each getting heating by its predecessor. In 1833, Relu was approached by a New Orleans sugar manufacturer named Edmund Forstall because the numerous sugar producers had received complaints about product quality. Forstall persuaded Norbert to become the chief engineer of the Louisiana sugar refinery. Unfortunately, almost as soon as Norbert took the job, an intense feud developed between Forstall and his father, Vincent Relu. Out of loyalty to his father, Norbert left his position with the company. A few years later, Norbert was hired by Theodore Packwood to improve his Myrtle Grove plantation refinery. In doing so, he employed his triple evaporation pan system, which he patented in 1843. It was an enormous success and revolutionized sugar refining industry, improving efficiency, quality, and safety. In the 1850s, New Orleans was suffering from an outbreak of yellow fever caused by disease-carrying mosquitoes. Relu devised an elaborate plan for eliminating the outbreak by draining the swamplands surrounding the city and improving the existing sewer system, thus removing the breeding ground for the insects and therefore the ability for them to pass on the disease. Fortunately, Edmund Forstall, Norbert's former employer, was a member of the state legislature and spoke out against the plan. Forstall was able to turn sentiment against Relu, and the plan was rejected. Norbert was disgusted hmm, with the racism with the racism. It's actually misspelled. With the racism prevalent in the South, as well as the frustration of the local politics, you eventually left New Orleans and moved back to France. Ironically, after a number of years, which time the yellow fever continued to devastate New Orleans, the state legislature was forced to implement an almost identical plan introduced by white engineers.
Impressive, impressive, impressive. The last part sounds like myself. Disgusted, frustrated, tired of beating your head up against the wall, and just walked away from everyone.
Hmm.
But it's funny how something that, at least myself, I can't speak for any of you, but at least for myself, when you come up with something on the job, maybe you've dealt with it. I know I have. The whole, if I say it and I do it, there's a problem. It must be attacked and totally picked apart. However, if someone of fair skinned Western European descent brings it up, well, then it's the greatest idea since sliced bread,
Hmm.
which is what this gentleman clearly ran into.
So they ran him out of town.
Well, at least he had his wealth and his wits with him. So I wouldn't say they ran him out. He got frustrated and left of his own accord.
Hmm. Well, I know you have anything you want to add to this
No comment.
complex?
Oops. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Next brother on the docket is Andre Robakis. Rokas was born in 1838 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was trained at the military school of Rio de Janeiro and became an engineer. And after studying in Europe, after returning to Brazil, Robucus was named a lieutenant in the engineering corps in the 1864 Paraguayan War. During the war, as naval vessels became more and more integral, Robucus uh, designed an immersible device which could be projected underwater, causing an explosion with any ship it hit. The device became known as the torpedo. After his military career, Robucus began teaching at the Polytechnical School in Rio de Janeiro and became very wealthy. He was used he used his wealth to aid in the Brazilian abolition movement, trying to end slavery in Brazil. After growing disgusted with the conditions in Brazil, Robucus moved to uh, Funchal, Madeira, off the coast of Africa, where he died in 1898. I tip my hat to this brother. Salute to him. I know you have anything you want to add to that?
That's pretty cool what he designed. Um, and then tying this one into the last article, how you and Paul said, just walk away. He walked away and straight up went to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Now I wonder what all he did in Africa. I know the article's cut short there, but I wonder what all he did in Africa.
Well, it looks like he moved to Madeira, so like he was off the coast, man. He probably just went there with his stacks and was just chilling until he went off into the sunset.
And he was pretty old too.
Yeah, I mean, but that's how you're supposed to do it, though. Like you use what it is that you know to make your mark in whatever venue that is. I mean, dude, the torpedo. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like large scale military industrial firms today develop torpedoes.
Still in use.
I'm saying this dude right here is because of him.
Yeah, but I think what Complex is saying, one guy developed a weapon that is being used, that will be used forever and forever.
Man,
you have massive firms dedicated to doing it now, with hundreds of thousands of people trying to replicate everything that this one black man did, while at the same time using his money not for snapbacks and silkscreen T-shirts, but for liberating people. You don't get more pro-black than that.
Nope. Wow.
What's that, Lionel?
No, I don't say anything. Got anything, Paul?
Paul's not here.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, Paul dropped off. He'll probably be back on.
All right, next one is Lloyd Ray. Before Lloyd Ray patented his invention, anyone cleaning a room or a hall simply swept dirt, dust, or trash out of the door onto the ground outside, or used a piece of paper in order to collect it. Ray created a device with a metal collection plate attached to the short wooden handle in which trash could be swept without getting one's hands dirty. The device patent on August 3rd, 1897 is called the dustpan.
Simple stuff.
Well, you had a black man who created the mop.
Yeah.
Created a dustpan.
Everything. I was gonna say something, but I want to take this. Yeah.
It wouldn't have to do with dust.
That's awesome, man.
You know, I'll save it for the end of the hangout. But
Can I just get this one?
yes, sir.
Oh, the irony that it was a brother who invented the dustpan.
Hmm. Coon.
Yeah,
All right, next brother is William Purvis. William Purvis realized how much of an inconvenience it was to carry around a bottle of ink wherever you need to sign a contract or fill out illegal papers. He therefore decided to do something about it. On January 7th, 1890, Purvis received a patent for the fountain pen. The pen eliminated the need for an ink bottle by storing ink within the reservoir within the pen, which is then fed to the pen's tip. Of his accomplishment, Purvis said, quote, "The object of my invention is to provide a simple, durable, and inexpensive construction of a fountain pen adapted to general use and which may be carried in the pocket. The creation of the foundation pen or the fountain pen has made office work cleaner and less expensive for business all over the world. In addition to his fountain pen, Purvis, a resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, also successfully patented a number of other inventions between 1884 and 1897. He patented bag machines, a bag fastener, a hand stamp, an electric railway device, an electric railway switch, and a magnetic car balancing device. He also believed to have invented, yet not patented, several other devices such as edge cutter found on aluminum foil, wow, cling wrap, and wax paper boxes.
What the hell, dude? Like, do you see how like wide ranging that stuff is? God damn, dude. Like,
From mops to dustpans to
wait, but the
bed.
fountain pen, dude. Okay, I'm kind of like, I've been intrigued by like fountain pens for a really long time. Like, so like, pens like Mont Blancs, you can look those up, man. Like, those are like $1,500 pens.
Yeah, I'm a pen nut myself, so I
Yeah.
know what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. That's a $1,500 pen, dude. The fountain pen.
Hmm. I have a couple. I have a pack of uni balls right now. I hold on to for dear life, but
Yeah, I'm gonna grab some more fountain pens, man. Like anyone who's like just kind of curious about that, just briefly, fountain pens are really unique because like if the use of a fountain pen, especially for your signature, no one can duplicate your signature if you use a fountain pen.
hmm the amount of drag that it takes to get your signature correct is
Hmm.
pretty unique. Like a
Yep,
finger.
it's like a fingerprint, right?
Hmm.
I thought I was the only one that appreciated a good pen.
Oh man, I go nuts. I don't let anybody borrow my pens.
Man, or else you're not gonna get it back.
Boy, I've driven all over the city. Like, yo, can I get my pen back, fam?
Christian said he has two of the $300. Well, these are Mont Blanc. Christian. He says the one black one and one blue one. Wow.
Now that we
So,
on this, I'm going to send out a video of someone talking about pens. It's not it it's not dreary or dragged out. It's like wow, this is some good stuff that I saw years ago.
Hmm.
Because I thought I was the only one that appreciated a really good pen, but apparently not.
Hmm. But just imagine the amount of other inventions he had just beyond the pen. I mean, we're talking about um,
dude, there
you
was
know,
like a railway
hand stamp,
switch.
hand stamps, the aluminum foil edge layer that cuts off the aluminum foil from the
Like,
from the roll
what
itself.
the hell? He just like he would just think of things, dude. Like think just things. Like look at all the different stuff. Dude, a magnetic car balancing device. What the hell is that?
I wish Paul was on you so he can actually chime in on that.
Good God.
I have
He
no
is. No, he
idea.
is. He's right there. There he is.
I have no idea what a magnetic car balancing device
What
is.
the hell is that, Paul?
Paul, can you open up a second window and actually search for that? Or am I know?
That's gonna have to be Lionel, not me.
Okay.
Have
I'm on my phone
no
right now.
idea what that
Oh,
is.
okay. We'll return back to that then, because that's very interesting to hear a brother do something like that.
Oh, wait a minute. So I did a Google, and so I mean I'm getting things like a wheel balancer, um, like wheel balancing and alignment tools, which is what I used to have. You know, I have my shop.
Hmm.
Um,
Which is
Well,
another.
that probably makes sense for the size of the wheels back then,
mhm. Yeah.
right? Because they were like very narrow tires back then. They didn't have like big, 24s like they have right now. So.
Well, like, but the magnetic balancer, right? So, what that does is, so you know, it's like that machine. They stick the wheel, they put it on the machine, they spin it, and what happens is that it'll spin, it'll determine the fulcrum, and then it'll let it run. And then what'll happen is that the wheel will stop at the heaviest part on the bottom, and then what you'll do is you'll like stick some magnets, like like so depending on like how much weight it's determined that one wheel has on one side versus the other, you're going to take maybe like two or three magnets and then stick it on the opposite end to balance it out. I don't know if that's it, but I mean, still, dude, a magnetic car balancing device, that just sounds insane.
All right, this next brother is Robert Pelham. Robert Pelham was born in January of 1859 in Petersburg, Virginia. His parents, Robert and Frances Pelham, moved the family to Detroit, Michigan, in hopes of finding a more favorable atmosphere for the children to receive an education and opportunities for decent employment. While enrolled in public schools, Pelham was hired by a newspaper called the Daily Post, working under Zachariah Chandler, who trained him in the skills of journalism. He remained with the paper for 20 years while at the same time managing a black weekly newspaper called the Detroit Plain Dealer. Pelham would later Pelham would later hold a number of important jobs, including deputy oil inspector for the state of Michigan, special agent for the United States Land Office, and inspector for the Detroit Water Department. In 1893, Robert married Gabriel Lewis, and the couple moved to Washington D.C. in 1900, where he took a job for took a job as a clerk for the United States Census Department. Studying at night, Pelham received a law degree from Howard University in 1904, and soon began work on a project to help him with his job at the Census Department. At the Census Department, a clerk had to manually paste statistical slips onto sheets and organize appropriately. The process was messy and required many employees to carry it out. Pelham devised a method for automating the pasting process and set out to create a device that could accomplish it. Starting with a rolling pen, cigar box, wooden screws, and other miscellaneous items, Pelham developed a working model which he put into effect. The apparatus would go on to save the department more than $3 million. He continued working for the Census Bureau for 30 years, and during that time, patented two items: the tabulation device in 1905 and the tallying machine in 1913. After re- After retiring from the Census Bureau, he began editing a black newspaper called the Washington Tribune, and later created the Capitol News Services, a news agency devoted to black issues of the day. In June of 1943, Robert Pelham died, leaving leaving behind him a list of accomplishments. Interesting.
That's very interesting right there.
Mm-hmm.
Before the calculator was invented, the tabulation device and the
Mm-hmm.
tallying machine were what clerks and accountants used to keep track of things.
Mm-hmm.
And even the first computers, which were invented after the war, it wasn't for another 30 years after that before the calculator was invented. I remember as a little boy actually having in the 70s, as a very young little sprite, actually having a tabulation machine. They were heavy, they were metallic, they were green. You pressed the buttons, yeah, to add things up, and they were always accurate.
Mm-hmm. It's good to hear. All right, last brother on the docket, George Murray. George Murray was, without a doubt, one of the most remarkable citizens of his time. A teacher, farmer, land developer, and federal customs inspector, the former slave would go on to become the United States congressman and a noted inventor. George Murray was born in Sumter County, South Carolina, in September 1853. He spent the first 13 years of his life as a slave, but after the Emancipation Proclamation, enrolled at South Carolina State University, and later continued his education at the State Normal Institute. George Murray's uh, patent in the next 20 years, he serves as a school teacher, the chairman, the Sumter County Republican Community, as and as a customs inspector for the Port of Charleston. A position was appointed by the President of the United States, Benjamin Harrison. In 1892, George Murray was elected as United States Congressman representing the state of South Carolina. In this position, he frequently spoke from the floor of the House, describing the plight of black citizens and imploring his fellow congressmen to protect those citizens' rights. One topic that Murray spoke openly about, was the plight of the black inventor. In the day of in that day of age, most whites were completely unaware of the success that many blacks had enjoyed in inventing useful devices which were benefiting ordinary citizens. Murray recounted these achievements and read them into congressional record. While serving in his second term, Murray secured patents for 8 inventions, including cultivating and fertilizing equipment and a cotton chopper. After after serving 2 terms in Congress, Murray became a real estate speculator, eventually moving to Chicago, Illinois in 1905. He died in April of 1926 and was buried in Illinois. A market speculator.
Yeah, nowadays we call that a real estate investor.
Hmm. He was a Bitcoin evangelist before Bitcoin. What I find interesting is that throughout history, people, I shouldn't say throughout history, but in certain sectors of black circles, people always talk about the coon this and coon that. These brothers that we've read off all night were not only were they squares, but they were pro-black. They were more pro-black back then than most of what you consider pro-black today. And I feel very offended when I see people sit behind a keyboard and talk about how pro-black they are, but they never do anything. And these guys were on the ground putting in work, and they
You
didn't
know,
get any recognition. And this is my first time hearing about most of these guys.
there seems to be there is this idea that
Hmm.
if you are pro-black, you have to be an angry black man, raising your voice, aggressive, hyper masculine, with your hair on fire. And if you are anything other than that, you're not pro-black. And if you if you don't live in a black neighborhood and have a black woman on your arm riding around in a pimped out four door caddy, you're
Hmm.
not a pro-black. And if you're in IT or any other intellectually geared line of employment, you're a coon, you're a lame, you're a square, you're not down for the movement. You know, this that everyone has everyone has to be a singular singular of action, singular of thought, singular of mindset. And anything outside of that, you're not black. You don't support the quote unquote cause. And that's highly offensive because I have to second exactly what you just said. It is individuals who are nothing like that who tend to be the most effective and get the most done. Or you know what? Let me backtrack. It
Let
is
me get it
in
after you, Paul.
it is individuals like that who tend to be very effective. I don't want to say most, but very effective.
Hmm.
I'm done.
Go ahead, Youngers.
Agreed. What it shows is that the ones that are quiet, and sorry for the background noise, it's just we have the HVAC units in the other room,
Hmm.
if there is any. Um, Agreed. You know what you're seeing is that the people that are um, that these inventors that we just went over, or that Mike you just went over and talked about, they were men that thought. They used the power of their mind, not their physical power, not their vocal power or anything like that. They used the power of their mind to make things bend to their will and make changes for their people. They saw that, that there was an issue. And what you've seen now lately is that we've moved so far away from it. Now we're seeing, and again, yes, I am going to bring up a little bit of the current events, but not mentioning anything. But now you're seeing the people that are the most outspoken are the ones that are the farthest from that archetype or that stereotype or the person that you want to actually be led by. And you're looking at them and you're like, wow, they're probably the messiest people, but somehow they're running movements. But then we have people that um, are of a higher intelligence, that they're quiet, they're sitting in the background, much like the spook that sat next to the door, spook that sat next to the door, and they're the ones that are actually doing the most in terms of progress for our people across the diaspora. And, and that's one of those things where, yeah, I could be enraged by that too, Mike, and I see where you're coming from, and that's it.
I know.
A movement is ineffective if a movement is not a movement if it's ineffective.
Hmm.
If there is no actual movement, no actual change, it is a movement in name only.
I mean,
So
even a bowel movement is a movement. So
I was gonna say define movement, man.
yeah, and that's what you're seeing. There's a lot of it's just a lot of crap coming out of people's mouths, and they're not even living the lifestyle that they're actually promoting.
hello.
You're seeing that the choices that they make are coming to light, and that have always come to light. Um, there's very few, but then you're seeing even the ones that were doing any type of debauchery, say Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the ones that were doing debauchery and then reformed themselves have actually done great things. And then now you're seeing the ones that are in debauchery and they're not doing great things. They're just talking. They're just espousing talking points that are divisive, espousing talking points that they themselves don't even follow. They're espousing talking points that other men and women are coming back and actually and defending them for. And it's like we have no standards, and it's like, like we don't have any concrete standards that we can actually stand on. like in terms of like a foundation, and that's really sad. And I really think that people that are um, very strict or rigid in their thought are they're going to be the extreme, but they're going to be necessary because it, we falling for anything, man. And
Well, if you're
like,
gonna be the type of person who's gonna be out here creating things, inventing things, doing things of that nature, then your thought power, your brain power has to be applied there, and it can't be repurposed and focused into things of a dusty nature. Uh, so
this guy. Clean it up, man. Clean it up. You know, inventions to sweep some of these motherfuckers up. Or some of these people.
Bro, when you jump on your soapbox and say that black men have to marry a black woman and have to have black kids and to do anything other than that is suicidal. But yet you turn around and don't marry a black woman and you turn around and have children with strippers who you don't even take care of. Bro, I can't take you serious. I can't. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth to me when you want to stand on top of a high horse and a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
You are a hypocrite by your own words and actions. I can't take you serious because I see your hustle for what it is. I see it a mile away. Now, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I respect your hustle. If that's your hustle, I respect it. Go out, do you, make your money. But understand something. I see your hustle. I see your BS. Just because many people fall for it, do not include me amongst those who fall for it.
Well, I want to make sure we stay on topic with this.
Yes, I'm
Black
sorry.
inventors. Um, it's just interesting that they were operating under a climate, a racial climate, I should say, social climate, where you had to fight every day. Your life was on the line. I mean, now we might run into a few trolls on social media, and we get riled up over that. But these guys were worried about whether or not there was going to be a noose wrapped around their neck at any given time. Before this was before there was police departments, before there was any form of real law enforcement. You just had you know uh, uh, rogue psychopaths riding around on horseback, you know who may woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, decide that I'm going to snatch this black man up, and we don't know how many black inventors are not are not being given credit for, or not written about, because we don't know how many of them have been taken, by oppressive powers.
too many to name, probably.
Yeah, we they don't even have a real good. The only estimate they have is like 10,000 slaves at one point were lynched.
Mike, we were talking the other night, and I spoke very briefly about Katherine Johnson from, I believe that's her name, from the movie Hidden Figures.
Hmm.
And the character that the actress Octavia Spencer, I believe her name is, played, she reprogrammed that IBM machine. So now the point that I'm about to make is, has she ever even received credit for being a programmer and a coder? Okay, so to
I
follow,
thought I thought that they made a facility after her.
I'm not sure. I can't speak to that.
Hmm.
But my point is,
Hmm.
even if she received her proper credit, how many other people, to follow your point, how many other people like that did similar things and were never given credit for because that very same night or 2 or 3 nights later, someone got their feelings hurt because this black person outthought them and outproduced them, so they ended up mysteriously missing. The same way that Malcolm X's father committed suicide by laying in front of an oncoming train.
Hmm.
So, you raise an excellent point as far as inventions by Black Americans. And unfortunately, I think you are on the money when you say, in all likelihood, we will probably never know the full extent of inventions that were created by these gentlemen,
Mhm.
given the culture and time and climate under which they were operating.
Mhm.
The only thing I can really say to this is that, I mean, all of these things are to be taken as lessons. You know, they're to be taken as lessons as to um, what we are to do to protect the things that we create going forward into the future. Because all the tools now are available, you know, literally at our fingertips, you know, to make sure that we're at, you know, at large anyway, or largely that we're protecting what it is that we create. So, you know, I would point over to LegalZoom. There's a few other web-based patent services
Mhm.
where essentially you're just uploading documents. It's stuff that you just do from your computer. So and it'll get the ball rolling on the patent process. Um, so there's a lot of takeaways. That's how I view a lot of this stuff. You know, I don't get all, you know, I don't know. I just look at it, I see it for what it is. I say, okay, you know, yeah, like what Paul was saying earlier. Okay, that dude, just looking at the list of stuff that guy created, that dude should be like, he should be like one of the richest people on paper. When you just look at that, and if you were to look at how, let's just say like a holding company that had all of those all of those types of patents and properties in its portfolio, and it leveraged it in a strategic manner on an industrial scale, that would be an extremely profitable company. That would be a very valuable company to the tune of some billions. So, you know, it's all about acquiring the patents, taking the right IP approach, intellectual property approaches, and funneling it all the way through the creation process, R&D cycles down into the manufacturing, down into the markets. I mean, well, even before the markets, distribution, then the markets. I mean, it has to be. We have to be looking at it full scale, or we're just going to get taken for a ride, like we've seen happen with a lot of these inventors.
I think something like this, in my mind, I mean, I'm always thinking of something to take up even more of my time, what little I have, and I'm inspired to start, partnering with some Nesby affiliates, or trying to affiliate with Nesby, and then even start some type of incubator of some sort for young Black talent, um, that want to do more in terms of just creating inventions, or even getting their patents out there. I know a lot of young guys. One guy on the football team at my old high school that I coach at, he's always like, "Hey, coach, internship waiting on you." And I'm like, "Listen, when you're out of school, and you have time free during the days, or during the day, then I can actually take you for a couple of days and take you on the road and show you what I do on a regular basis, working with customer computers, fixing little things, customer service, so on and so forth." And maybe even having programs where we can actually get space where we can start doing the little coding, uh, what's it called, classes would be great, or just labs or what have you, and say, hey, let's create something. Let's, look at a project. And I don't know much about coding. I know some stuff, but, I'm not very advanced. But sometimes all you need is somebody that's a little bit older that says, hey, um, let's look here, or this is how you search on Google to find that answer, or apply logic to the issue so you can actually do proper problem solving. And I think it's great to see all that, and I think this should inspire others, especially those watching, to start little incubators in their own areas or affiliate with groups like Nesby.
Mhm. I know. Did you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm just listening to the good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on saving up some money because I want to find some graffiti artists who can do some airbrush work and actually airbrush these guys' faces on canvas and and then create a plaque and just put it behind, put it up under their name. Um, I put it under their airbrush, their face. Sorry, and just put it on the wall as a reminder of the excellence of what black men had to offer 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Um, and people always say, "Oh, I hear some of these comments about, black men don't, they just don't do anything. And what are black men doing to fight, white supremacy?" And I'm like, well, why don't we look through history? Why don't we look through history? Because this is just a fraction of all these black men that I'm covering for tonight. I only put 14 on the docket because that was enough for me to cover, for us to cover. Sorry, and the inventions that they've come up with are still being used this very day.
Yeah, I mean, it's if we can, I was that like that's beautiful, Mike, because I was envisioning something like that in my head. If you can have, if I, and I'm hoping for this, but if I can find a way to get a space, and then I can start putting up those pictures of black inventors around,
Hmm.
it could inspire kids to say, hey, listen, this is what this is done, this is what that is, like because even Paul Bryant said it. He's like, I never heard of this person before, when talking about spikes, I believe.
Hmm.
And that's kind of disheartening because I never heard of a lot of these people, even when I had to do some research a couple of weeks ago, just for to validate one of my comments. And I was just like, holy crap.
Hmm.
Voice over IP was created by a black woman, or is patented by a black woman. Like, that's crazy.
Go ahead, Paul.
To add on to what young Grizzly was saying, I think I have expressed before. I have a vision, and my vision is to have a trade school physically in a black area, in a black neighborhood, where you can learn every construction union trade, ironworking, carpentry, um, electrician, pipe fitting, plumbing. You can also learn the IT trades from coding to IT to programming, everything. So you can run the full gamut. Because I'm of the belief that IT and emerging tech needs to be the driving force Black people need to be looking at. On the flip side, you're always going to need someone to build things, right? No matter how much you automate, you're still going to need people to build things. So that's not something that needs to be shied away from. But if you do it in the right manner, because union employment for skilled trades is very viable, and you can earn a very good living and dovetail that onto other endeavors, including IT, and even find ways to develop synergies for both. So I think that that would be an amazing resource to have.
Hmm.
There's no reason why they need to be exclusive of each other and exclusively taught in two different places.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because a lot of those skills are actually transferable to the continent and other places. Especially being a master electrician and networking. So those two go together because networking is considered to be low voltage. Anything below 48 volts. I think that's what it is. It's considered to be low voltage. But yeah, all those skills are definitely transferable and very necessary going forward. You can't automate those are jobs that can be automated.
Well, there's a lot more problems that are being invented every day because of the expansion of the human race, or the human species. And when you go into things like space, how are we going to travel from one end of space to the next in a short period of time, so on and so forth. A lot of these calculations can be done by computers, but there's the imagination factor of it all. And if we can inspire younger ones to get into that, and other men of our ilk and age group, then that would be even greater, because then you're going to start to see even more in terms of space exploration. And now with blockchain technology, um, hopefully we can actually have um, a true record of the accomplishments of Black people that cannot be scrubbed and can always be available for people to research.
I
Yeah.
would say, I would just say that, to kind of follow on that, Grizz, I would even take it a step further and say, a specific sector of maybe say like space exploration that uh, we would say that we would like to target. So, you might create some sort of future agenda type of um, manifesto, right? And you pledge that all of your all of your youth are going to be focused on interdimensionality and all things interdimensional with the focus on uh, you know travel through interdimensional means, right? As a basis, and so that means that then any sort of
Wait,
thoughts, ideas, creations,
interdimensional or intersectional? I'm not sure. I just wanted to make
no,
sure.
interdimensional. God,
Start
can
my
we just be serious, please?
Don't
No,
bring up the serious card, okay? Ulysses, you of all people. But okay, I'm sorry.
no, but it's like it would be like literally like future forward technology, man, where you got like a bunch of little kids like coming up with like different ideas on how to create like portals and stargates and shit. I think that would be amazing.
Bro, there's no I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention because I forgot to mention earlier that in Micro Center here in Cambridge, um, when you walk in the store, up in the rafters, um, they have a the whole entire store has all of these pictures of people from Silicon Valley who invented things in their honor, whether they're alive or not. Everybody who has something to do with building up the Silicon Valley is honored inside the store, and the store is massive. It's this massive display of all of these great inventors from 3Com, Bob Metcalf, and Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak. It just keeps going on and on and on. I just find that to be fascinating. That's how they honor their people. And for us, I think we should be doing the same thing. So.
Exactly, because you cannot tell me that theoretical physics and particle physics and astrophysics, that everyone that is something that a person is born into. Okay, it is exposure and education. So imagine vertical integration where you have a particle physicist uh, doing his research and having and being able to walk into another room or down one or two floors and have someone physically build and build something that he's designed for an experiment, and it works, and they're all black because they were educated in the same space. All right, there is no reason. It is lack of exposure. It's cultural in many other areas, but there needs to be a fundamental shift. Absolutely.
Mm.
I think we're gonna have to do this one more time next week, one more game. But because we still have
One more
quite a few.
weekend.
Yeah, we still have quite a few. There's probably about 25 more that we have to cover.
Oh
Um,
shit!
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean,
Why don't
some
we
of them,
just go
some of
eight
them I
hours?
know. Huh?
Why don't we just go 8 hours?
Oh, really?
No.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, there's even some guys that were in modern technology inventing the first cartridge for video games, things like that. Like the stuff that Mike's hitting on is literally just almost like the preamble. Like it's just really whetting the appetite. You start bringing it to like modern technology, and you'll be like, "What the fudge?" you know, or even if you start including, I mean, not just black people but brown people as well, India, people of Indian descent,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, and you start to look at the person who invented, I believe, the USB at Intel. You know, I think that guy's still alive, and now
Yeah, he
we're
is. He is.
yeah, it's an Indian gentleman, right? I believe.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I mean, even that guy's still alive, and now it's in its third iteration, and it's balls to the walls fast. And you know, we've been alive, we've been alive to see the different iterations of floppy disks. You know, your big what, five and a half, 5 and a quarter floppy, I think it was, and
Yeah,
then
5 and 1/4.
five. I think was it 3.5 or 2.5 floppy? I
Three,
forgot.
3.5, 3.5.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like, you know, we've seen all these things, and then you saw the invention of USB, and then how that changed the game in terms of, you know, so there's just a lot in terms of just inventors and inventions that are still happening till this day that we'll see how long they last.
Mm-hmm. Anti-gravity, if you can come on to the hangout, be greatly appreciated. Same thing, Christian. Yeah, I think we can shut it down for now. Just to we're overloaded with information for right now. But thank you all for joining us. We'll be back on Monday with space and technology. And have a good night and a good weekend.
Y'all.